So you're thinking of buying new construction or maybe a new townhouse, totally from the ground up, or maybe even a gut renovation. Well, there's a lot of mistakes you can make when you're going this route, and it's a very different purchasing process compared to a traditional home or condo that's been around for some time. So in today's video, I'm gonna break down exactly what that process looks like if you decide to go the new construction route in Cambridge or Somerville, Massachusetts, some bombs you need to diffuse at some point potentially throughout the process, and really just an A to Z tutorial of everything you need to know about new construction. Hey guys, if you don't know me, my name is Jankowitz. I'm a realtor based in Cambridge and Somerville, Massachusetts. I've closed over 300 transactions in the last 3 years. If you guys have any questions as I'm going through the video, make sure you hit the Calendly link in the description below. And please also like and subscribe this video if you like what you guys are seeing. Before we get into the specifics, let's talk a little bit about what new construction is, because there is a lot of confusion here. And what we need to really differentiate is what is new construction versus what is a gut renovation. And so when we talk new construction, we're talking a totally new property in every sense of the word. We're talking a new foundation, new siding, new roof, new everything. It's a blank slate and everything is brand new. Now in Cambridge and Somerville, a lot of properties are marketed as new construction, but you need to understand that in reality, what they really are is a gut renovation. A gut renovation, typically what that will mean, at least in Cambridge and Somerville, oftentimes the foundation will stay in place, although, not always. So it'll be original foundation. Sometimes some of the framing will stay in place. So some of the original framing from the house, and oftentimes the roof will be original as well. But then everything else is totally wiped out and is brand new. So it's important to understand that a lot of properties that are called new construction are actually a gut renovation in Cambridge and Somerville. A lot of other parts of the country, you're going to see a lot more totally new construction. People buy land and then they just build on it. Here, land is so valuable that from a developer's point of view, oftentimes the numbers don't make sense. So they usually work with what they've got, although mostly everything is still brand new. So I think the one other thing that I just want to point out really quickly before we get deeper into this, when we're talking new construction versus gut renovation, is because a lot of these properties are more on the gut renovation side of things, there are going to be most likely some things that are original. So one of the first things that I like to do and that I'd recommend you do is understanding what was original to the house that stayed original to the house. So for example, if the roof is original and we know that they haven't touched the roof, and as far as they know, it hasn't been touched for 20, 30 years, or visually we can look at the roof and see that it's a bit older. Well, if you're buying this new construction home that's actually a gut renovation where the roof is 30 plus years old, there's a good chance that you're now going to have to replace it. So you're gonna have to build in maybe $20,000 or so to pay for a new roof in the first couple years after purchasing. A lot of my clients who are buying what they think is new construction don't go in with this understanding. So you need to realize that just because something is marketed as new construction, it's actually got reno, almost everything's new, it doesn't mean that there aren't things that you may have to do early on in the process. So that's like an important thing that I think a lot of clients miss when they first start in this process. The next thing that I want to talk a little bit about when we're talking about new construction and or gut renovation homes is what's included. Generally speaking, when you buy a home that's been lived in for a while, that was built, in Cambridge, Somerville, most homes are built early 1900s. A lot of the homes I look at were renovated at some point, maybe in the early 2000s. Usually you kind of get everything. And so sometimes from a buyer expectation perspective, there's certain things that don't necessarily always come with these new construction homes. And you need to make sure that you either negotiate them or you build them into your calculus when making the offer and understand you're going to take care of them. And some of them are small things. Some of them can be a little bit pricier, but just to go over a couple examples, one thing is the glass for the bathroom. Now, a lot of developers will include the glass for the bathroom for like a really nice glass shower, but not all of them do. And if they're not included, you're gonna be footing the bill for that. That could be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 per a bathroom. If you have a 4-bed, 3-bath condo, that could be an extra $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. So that can really add up. So that's one thing you want to understand. Sometimes you'll go into a bathroom and you'll say, oh, I guess I just have to put a bar here. Well, I guess you could do the bar too, but some spaces it's really best for the shower glass. So you really need to make sure that you understand either, okay, is the developer going to add that prior to closing? As an agent, are they going to negotiate for you on that shower glass and make sure that gets included? Or are you going to eat that cost, get it the way you want it, and pay a few thousand extra dollars after closing? So that's something that you need to be aware of. There's a lot of other small things. Towel bars are often not included. It's something you might not think about. Same with toilet roll holders, that kind of thing. Oftentimes there are washer dryer hookups, but there are no washer dryers because it's new construction. Sometimes the developer again will include them, but oftentimes they won't. So that's another key one that I see people miss, and then they have to spend, a couple thousand extra dollars on the washer dryer. So those are a couple things that you need to just kind of think about when you're going through the property. Another thing that can actually be a really nice bonus or positive with new construction properties is that if you get in early enough in the process, and this isn't always easy to do in Cambridge and Somerville, but I have certain relationships with developers at all times that I know are working on things at various stages. I also am aware of different off-market opportunities occasionally as well. So if you can get in early in the process, sometimes what you can actually do is you can actually start picking out the finishes that you like. And that can be really nice because I can't tell you how many times I find the finished product with a client and they have, just the crazy colored backsplash or countertops or cabinetry where it's a color where it just would never work. So if you get in early in the process, you can choose the color of the cabinets that you want potentially, or the countertops, or the vanities, or the dining room light fixture. A lot of these things that is really important to a lot of people, you can actually pick them, which in most cases you're not going to be able to do. So that's a really nice bonus. You can get involved in the process. Sometimes you work directly with the developer. Sometimes they might have a designer who's also involved. Sometimes the developer is the designer or their partner is the designer, but it allows you sometimes the chance, if you get in early enough, to make some judgment calls about what you want the place to look like. And that can be a really nice bonus. Now, this next thing is something that I see a lot of buyers totally unaware of, and that's the financing piece of this. Now, again, a lot of times properties will just come on the market, it's completed, they have the occupancy permit, which is what's required by the local town that basically says you can live in this, it's safe, it's good to go, and they can sell the thing to you. In those scenarios, it's not a big deal. But let's just rewind a little bit here. The last point I was making about being early on in the process and the benefit of choosing all the things you want, that's a real plus. But the flip side of that is you can run into some rate lock issues. So let's talk a little bit about this. So let's say, for example, you find a new construction property, but it's maybe 4 to 6 months out from being completed, according to the developer. So you want to get the offer signed, get this thing locked down before someone else takes it. You want to negotiate all the finishes. You want to sign the offer. You sign the offer, and it's supposed to be done, let's say in this example, in 6 months from now. Well, now you have potentially another issue, which is most banks, the rate they lock in for you. So let's say you have a 30-year fixed term rate. At this point, maybe it's 5.5%. It will only stay in place maybe for 60 days. So after 60 days, the rate can change, or if you want to keep your rate, you may have to pay a fee. Now, so what you really need to understand here is you need to have loan officers who either have the ability to have a longer term rate lock or have some flexibility to work with you. I know some great loan officers who can work with you in these scenarios, but it can be a really stressful situation. I have been in situations with clients where they lock in a really low great rate, and then the project keeps getting delayed, which, by the way, happens all the time with these kind of projects. Developers all the time think it's going to take 2 months, 4 months, and then it becomes an extra 2 to 3 months. And now all of a sudden your rate lock expires, the new rate is much higher, and now the numbers may not make sense at all. So you really need to take into account rate lock and understanding the terms. I'm happy to have a deep dive conversation with you. Feel free to hit that Calendly link in the description below. We can talk a little bit about this because this is kind of a long topic, but you need to understand rate lock issues are a real thing, especially if you're buying maybe off market or pre-construction or earlier on in the process. So you need to understand this dynamic when making a decision about buying one of these homes if it's not, just on market and just on the MLS with an occupancy permit in hand. Next up, let's talk a little bit about home builders warranties. So a lot of people in the state of Massachusetts are a little bit confused here. They assume with new construction that all new construction has to come with a home builder's warranty. That actually isn't true. It doesn't have to, but I find the vast majority of home builders do include a warranty. It's usually a 1-year warranty. I find that there's a lot of language in there that's very slippery that allows the developer to slip out of dealing with these things. So, don't treat the home builder's warranty as a catch-all that's going to protect you if every little thing under the sun breaks, because it probably won't. And also don't assume necessarily that there will be one. So that's a great question that I always ask is, will there be a home builder's warranty and what does that look like? Again, some will do it, some won't do it. And you have to make a judgment call how much this matters to you. My general feeling is I don't go crazy with these and having them. And there's a reason why, and that's for the next point, which we'll get into in a second. But the bottom line is, if you do get one, make sure you read it over carefully. Doesn't hurt to have your real estate attorney read it over, and they're probably going to tell you exactly what I'm telling you in this video, which is, again, the language tends to be very slippery, and it probably is going to be hard to utilize unless something really catastrophic happens. This kind of brings me to the next point, and this is the implied warranty of habitability. This is something in Massachusetts. It's a great protection, but it's only for major, generally like structural issues or major construction issues that went really, really poorly. And basically what it means is that if you buy the property and in the first 3 years, there's some major significant issue with the property that was clearly the fault of the developer, then it's up to the developer to fix it, okay? So you are protected from these major situations. The problem is there's a lot of gray area here, and a lot of things are smaller where it's gonna be much more challenging to get anything done. So just know if something really catastrophic happens, you may have some recourse. Of course, you never wanna get there, and depending on the market, most of the time you can have an inspector in and hopefully catch a lot of these things beforehand. But just understand that there is something there that you can explore in like a worst case scenario. Again, this is one that I could probably talk about for quite a bit. So if you have particular questions, comment below or feel free to ping me and I'm happy to answer your questions. All right, let's talk a little bit about blue tape and punch list. So after your offer is accepted, at some point you're gonna get into that property, usually with your agent, and you're gonna go through the property and you're gonna do something called blue taping. And basically what it is you're going through the property with a piece of blue tape and you're looking for issues that either haven't been completed yet or that need fixing. And this is always an interesting one. You want to kind of straddle a line here. And again, it goes back to what I say often, which is be reasonable, right? I see some clients where they have one of those circular blue tape, pieces of blue tape that you get from Home Depot, and they go through the whole tape for a 2-bed, 2-bath condo. And it's too much. There's just too much there. The developer isn't gonna make all those changes. And then I see other people say, it's good, we're all set. Usually it's somewhere in between. Almost always there are going to be some issues. There could be things that need to be fixed. Maybe a cabinet was installed improperly. Maybe one window isn't working. Maybe there's some nail pops that need to be fixed in the ceilings. Maybe there's some smears of paint that need to be cleaned up. There are almost always going to be some things that need to be cleaned up or fixed in some way. That's totally normal. You put a piece of blue tape on there. Then what I recommend as best practice is come up with a punch list in writing via email going over all the work the developer should fix prior to closing. So you come up with the list and then hopefully by closing, they'll fix all those items that you came up with. And so the next logical question here is, okay, let's say you blue tape, 10 items, developer finishes 4 or 5 of them, there's still 4 or 5 items, you're getting to closing and they're not complete. What do you do? Well, this is where things can get a little tricky. Option 1 is you can say, I simply won't close until these things are remedied. I find that usually doesn't go so well with developers a lot of times, but again, it will depend on current market conditions. Option 2 that I find can be a good option, but again, depends on the market. And oftentimes, frankly, in Cambridge and Somerville, it's such a strong market. This is also hard to do, but occasionally you can ask for something called a holdback. The way a holdback essentially works is, let's say, for example, there's 4 items and we determine that the cost of those items is roughly $2,000-3,000. We can instruct your attorney to say, we're gonna hold back $2,000 or $3,000 of the purchase price, put it in escrow, and it's just gonna float there. And the seller, the developer, isn't gonna get that until the work's done. And that oftentimes is a fair compromise. You can get the developer then to do the work. And then once the work is completed, that $2,000, $3,000 is released. If they don't do the work, it stays in escrow. So that can be a decent middle ground. It really depends on sort of a case by case. And this is a situation where you really need to lean on your realtor and understand the dynamics of the particular property, the particular developer, the scope of work, the current market conditions. So you have to kind of look at all those things and then make a judgment call on how you want to proceed in these situations. But understand that we do have some tools in the toolkit if we get to this point around blue taping where we need some things to be figured out. So that's it for today, guys. I hope this was helpful. I hope you feel like you're in a stronger position if you're going through the new construction or gut renovation approach in terms of buying a property. I think specifically for these type of properties, it really makes a lot of sense to have a realtor who understands this process and can walk you through it. This is one situation where I see, clients with inexperienced realtors kind of get into a tricky spot sometimes. So really know what you're doing as you're going through this process and know how to straddle that line. Very easily, you can be in a situation where you're being too aggressive with the developer and it can make things worse for you, or you can be not aggressive enough and you're really missing out on things that should be included. So hopefully, again, this was helpful. Make sure you guys subscribe, make sure you guys like, comment with any questions, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.